are live. Hey, what's up, ladies and gentlemen? This is Eddie Gray. I wanted to welcome you to hfmusicacademy.com. I'm your host. We do this Wirecast every Monday and Wednesday at 5:30 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. And we're here to talk about all things mixing and mastering. We're here to talk about music production as a whole. And if you don't know who I am, look me up. I'm on a mission to help people. I'm on a mission to make a difference and make a contribution with what I like to call the modern creative. What is the modern creative? Well, I'm talking about a new kind of musician, a new kind of composer, beat maker, producer that thinks about music a little bit differently. Perhaps not necessarily in traditional terms, but in modern terms. We take the lessons of the past and we look out towards the future. So with that being said, we always start off with a little bit of reading, whether it's in the beginning or in the end of this cast. And so right now, I want to turn your attention to a really, really cool book that I like called Steal Like an Artist. We're currently on, forget the chapter. My iTunes needs to be updated because I'm not on Catalina. I refuse. If you're in music production, I highly recommend that you always stay one or two versions behind in terms of the operating system. And so in order for me to use iBooks now, I have to update, so we're not doing that. So just for now though, school yourself. School is one thing. Education is another. The two don't always overlap. Whether you're in school or not, it's always your job to get yourself an education. You have to be curious about the world in which you live, look things up, chase down every reference, go deeper than anybody else. That's how you'll get ahead. Google everything. I mean everything. Google your dreams, Google your problems. Don't ask a question before you Google it. You'll either find the answer or you'll come up with a better question. Always be reading. Go to the library. There's a magic in being surrounded by books. Get lost in the stacks. Read bibliographies. It's not the book you start with, it's the book that book leads you to. Collect books even if you don't plan on reading them right away. Filmmaker John Waters said, nothing is more important than an unread library. So that's John Waters. Don't worry about doing research, just search. And here's a quote by RZA from the Wu-Tang Clan. Whether I went to school or not, I would always study. All right, I'm going to leave it there because I don't have the actual document, but that's on my iPhone here. And so check out Steal Like an Artist by Austin Kleon. So here's the deal. I have a session after this, so it's going to be a short cast today. I had a deadline from, from 2:30 to 4. I had to crank out a track, and so I had to come up with the most efficient mixing methodologies that were gonna get me right to the door, okay? Because I didn't have the luxury of time, and this is again who I'm catering to. The new kind of musician that has a lot going on in their life. They have to go to work. They're dealing with life and all the stuff that's happening, right? And they still have to produce. They still have to be in a state of peak performance. That's who I'm interested in serving. So let's get into the session here, and I want you to hear this session, what it sounds like before and after. I'll just go to like the first chorus, and then we'll go from there. And shout out to collaborator Dario Camuzzi on this. Here we go. Okay, so that's good. So again, hour and a half, had to crank out the mix. I'm going to show you some of the tricks and show you kind of some of the real world training. And why am I doing this? I do this because I care about creative people. There was a time where I was actually going to quit music, and had I done that, I wouldn't have won a remix contest. I wouldn't have got an award. I wouldn't have learned how to be a self-sufficient full-time music producer, which was always my dream since I was a little kid. I wouldn't have been the head composer on an Emmy Award winning show. I wouldn't have been the composer of the Kim Kardashian West Justice Project documentary, which was out about a month ago. Check it out on Oxygen. I believe it's still free. for viewing. So that being said, I'm out here spreading the good word that you can get yours. There's plenty of opportunities happening all the time. Okay, and so whether you're in one genre, whether you just do hip hop, or perhaps you have wings and you expand, and you can do various genres, whatever the case may be, it doesn't really matter. There is a home for you in this world, and it is your responsibility to find it and no one else's. So that's what we're doing here. Okay, all right, so I'm gonna go ahead and play the beginner version, the one that we started with. Here, check this out. All right, so how does one get to that point? How do you turn something completely upside down and let it breathe and sound dynamic and sound much bigger and professional in just an hour and a half? And so that's what we're here to talk about today. Well, the very first thing that I can tell you is, I made a bunch of very quick adjustments on this session. And so I just want to show you those really quick. Here we go. All right. Okay, so what happened here was I just kind of did what's called a static mix. I just kind of listened to everything and I treated it really quickly just to get a sense of the positioning, where everything was going to be, and to be quite honest, if it was going to work, if I could actually nail the deadline within, within reason. Like, was I going to have enough time to get this job done? And this is a paid job, so we need to make sure that, we come correct and they're impressed. Want to make sure that they hire you again. So when you're under stress and you have a lot going on, you're underslept perhaps, what are some of the tools that you can use in order to get ahead? All right, this is what we're going to look at now. Okie dokie. All right, so the very first thing that I can tell you, if you want to work quickly and you need to turn in either a version of your song, which is like a mix so that a client can hear it right now, and if not, the completed final version, the very first thing that I can tell you is this: you should build it from the ground up. What do I mean by that? I would start with the drums and get them to sound as good as you can. Get them to just sound as strong, as big. Now, again, comparing it to what we had before, it really wasn't anything. I just had a couple of sore sounds. There was nothing in here that I could replace. I didn't have the time to necessarily record. Um, I did trigger the kick. I remember that. So I took the existing kick and I just swapped it for something else. But other than that, all of this is just, I had the song and I just had to make it happen. So listen to these drums and we'll go over some of the techniques here. Okay, so the very first, actually, you know what? Let's go to the chorus real quick. All right, so the very first thing I gotta say is group processing is absolutely imperative if you're really gonna get your drums to knock. All right, so here's the same drum part. In fact, I'll start from here with the drum processing bypassed. Okay, so why are we doing this? Well, we want to send every single one of these drums into a track stack, or you can send it to a bus, which is really just the same thing, in order to process them. I basically have a couple of compressors here, all right, and then I have some tape emulation, and then I have an L2. I usually don't use the L2, but I needed a little bit more power, and so then I just had to utilize this beast of a limiter. So that sounded good. And I just kind of fell in love with all the parts. For example, these claps, right? Listen to this. I put a sample delay. If you ever have in fact, let me just show you this. If you ever have a source sound that, perhaps you like, but you're not in love with, it doesn't sound wide enough, it doesn't sound big enough, this is a nice little tool. It basically juxtaposes, you know, a source signal, in this case claps, and it just puts it right next to the sample. So if this one's 427 milliseconds right after the original, it's going to sound like, like it has a bit of a delay, and it's going to sound wider. And so it covers the stereo spectrum, the left and the right speaker, a lot better. Here's before. So the difference is that instead of just one clap, it now sounds like two, even though it's coming from just one source sound. And so obviously that's an auditory illusion, but that's that. I added some reverb. I added some more stereo width. I added a little reverb here as well called Perfect Room, which is outstanding. Man, this is like such a go-to now. It's perfect in so many ways. I mean, the name is obviously very fitting, but here, check this out. Yeah, I slightly detuned the reverb so it had a little bit of contrast, and then the tail, I just positioned it enough so that by the time the next clap came, the reverb was out, right? So that's pretty basic stuff. I added a compressor to soften it up. A deharsher, and then a filter. So this is right where the trick comes in, where we start taking away information, but it sounds so great. Check it out. Four. Yeah, so I'm not saying you have to stay that way for the whole song. I decided to, but just it's nice to have a band pass to just give you your life, your song rather, to give your song kind of, a more narrow, smaller feel. So that's always a nice trick there. So that's working pretty good. Let's listen to the next part here. Yeah, we got the hi-hats in there in order to, just give a sense of realism. This is kind of like an indie rock track, so that it was important in and of itself. There's a couple of different elements. Here, check this out. That's one kick, then there's another one here. So where I kick and snare with just a lot of effects. Here's another pattern. So this has more of an 808 sub feel to it. We add another snare on the 2 and the 4. Again with the claps. And then more claps on the left and the right to increase the width. Check it out. And then of course the ancillary reverb washed out clap every once in a while. Check this out. Alright, so that started becoming believable in my ears. And then the next part was the bass, getting the bass to work. So this is what we started with. Check it out. DI, I mean, just clean as a whistle, right? I shaped the bass a bit. Just took off some of the mids here. So let's call it 300, 250, all the way to 2K. So we got a little bit of shaping going on. Here we go. Before. So when I do this, I'm looking for tightness, right? Usually what I'll do is I'll go ahead and just like, grab one of these bands and I'll just kind of play with the frequencies and just kind of try and take away information. And I'm always looking for the hand and glove effect where like when I bypass it, it sounds looser, messy, and then as soon as I hit that button there, everything just gets tight. So that's what we're looking for there. And then in terms of the effect, I used Smash and Grab by Get Good Drums, and I mean obviously they created this for drums, but you can use it with anything, and we got this crazy sound. One of them is a VCA and one of them is an FET compressor. I forget which is which. They both sound pretty good. So anyway, I'll keep that one for now. And then the cherry on top was just a bass amp. It's just something to give it a sense of realism. Here we go. I actually used to own one of these a long time ago, and man, it sounds pretty darn good. Um, the plugins are getting to a point, man, where they really sound authentic, don't they? So that's the bass. I decided during the hook to change the feel of the bass. Check it out. All right, and I went clean because my reasoning was, hey, I already have some low end. I got the 808 coming in now. Maybe I'll just back off and let this be an electric bass. All right, so here, check this out. Let me play just these two elements. Okay, so you get kind of where we are now. So again, the reason I was able to do this so quickly because I just kind of fell in love with the parts as fast as I could. Just try and move things around in the panoramic field. I process stuff until I'm happy with it. You'll notice, some inserts I've got 7 different plugins, and some I have one. So I really think it's more about your taste. For example, everybody has a different style, right? We all kind of dress a little bit differently. In the same token, we all mix a little bit differently. And for me, I don't care if I have 20 decibels of gain reduction, or I need to increase 10k or 20k at for 10 decibels. To me, it's always about the result and what does it sound like at the very end of the process, right? So anyway, we got the rhythm section to sound pretty tight. Again, let's listen to this. We'll go to this part. Okay, roger that. So really the song is completely identified by the guitars. That's kind of really what makes a track like this. So let's get into the guitars. Okay, so this guitar to me is the anchor. It's kind of telling people what to feel. And so if you take the processing off, you get this. So again, a nice line, but it's just too visceral. It's too real. It's too clean. So what I did again was I just shaped it, just playing with the bands, just trying to see what do I want to accentuate. I know I like the bass portion of the EQ. I know the mids were causing some noise. Here, I'll show you what I mean. If I don't have this warmth here at 200 hertz, there really is a missing. Here, check it out. So that's good. And then I wanted to hear the picking, the strings, and so that's where this little decision came in at 2000 hertz. Here's without it. And this is truly where you start to learn the skill over time. If you haven't really been practicing, well, how can you expect the results that you want, guys, right? So you have to really take the time, put in the time. When I first started, I was just using presets. That made a lot of sense. I'd modify them if I kind of knew what I wanted. Um, then I got tired of being in a box and I just started moving these things around. And like I said, I'll get to a point where I'm like, okay, this sounds good. I like the way this sounds. So just depends on what you want to do. There is no right or wrong. So I got this to feel a little cleaner. That's always my first objective. Does it need to be corrected or does it need to be enhanced? In this case, it needed to be uh, enhanced and corrected in terms of a little bit of noise. But then after that, we had a secondary treatment here where I started playing with this reflection engine, basically just a really great reverb. Here, check this out. The way I think of it is just, it sounds like he's in a room, and it sounds a little bit more natural as a whole. That's not where the magic comes, okay? Okay, and then here I'm playing with Boz Digital Labs, and I'm playing with this amazing pan knob. I still don't know exactly how it's achieving what it's achieving, but I'll tell you, it sounds rich and just it always translates. Here, check it out. Every time I'm looking to position something and get a guitar to sit in the right place, that thing always comes to the rescue. A little bit of deharshing, and to me, this is kind of when the magic comes in. When we start to add some delay. Here, check this out. This is like a little bit of a slap back with uh, just a really magical effect. Check it out. You see, without it, it sounds like a guy in a room, which is okay. But now this starts to sound like a record, like it becomes believable. And we'll listen to the delays in a second. But I have a quarter note and then an eighth note triplet on the right side. So this is stereo, one on the left, one on the right. Check it out. All right, so right now I'm going to increase the one just on the right side so you can really hear it. Check it out. So you can hear it's playing kind of out of time, but it really works and it feels good. This is a quarter note, should sound a little bit more predictable. So you're just getting it kind of, on that downbeat. Ba-na-na-na, 1, 2, 3, 4. And so that's feeling really good. But again, the magic is together. Without it. So once that came together for me, to me that was, here, just listen to the rest of the track. Here, let me do that. Let me do that. Check it out. All right, and let me just show you the last part of this, kind of what took it over the top. So this is a new thing for me. It's called a tilt. It's another kind of EQ filter, another kind of EQ curve that accentuates the high parts of the frequency spectrum and in a subtle way dims the low end. And of course you could flip it so that it does the other thing. But wow, this has a great effect. So this is referred to as a tilt EQ. And if you want to, in a very subtle way, start to accentuate the highs or the lows, again, I was thinking the guitar pick, I was thinking the fingers on the guitar or the pick. I wanted all that detail, and so we got it here. Check it out. Here's B4. Hold on, hold on. So we're really just talking about realism. And so if you ever get to that point where you're trying to use an EQ, but it's just not working. You're trying to shape it, but being too specific is not helping. Then you can use either a high shelf or a low shelf, or just try out this tilt EQ and then just get it to kind of flip this way, test out the waters, flip the other way. I'll tell you, it's a really nice tool to have in your arsenal. Let's wrap it up because I have a session after this. Here we go. And if you're liking the content, subscribe, hit the notification bell, and check us out at hfmusicacademy.com. And if you have any questions, any insights, any feedback, go ahead and hit us up, support at hfmusicacademy.com. All right, so that sounded good. We had a secondary guitar here that, to me, without having to get too into it, was completely made by the reverb. So it doesn't matter which one you have per se. This is a nice one. But again, it's all about kind of how you use it and what you can pull from the reverb unit. Check it out. So yeah, that worked out for me. I like that it was subtle, just kind of sat in the back there. Here, listen. Things don't always have to stand out. They can just make an impact, and then you can move on. You don't have to make these grand impressions every time, right? You don't have to make a statement every time. All right, so here, let's get to the last part here. So, we got to the chorus. I added a reverb, reverse reverb, just to kind of get into it. This is a really good trick just for transitions. Check that out. Okay, and then as you may have remembered, I only had one guitar lead, and that was this one right here. And really the song just did not feel right. I needed more power, so I'm using a Marshall, and I'm using a gate, and really the gate saved the guitar because it was so loud. Here, check it out. Wait, don't freeze it. Here we go. Here's without the gate. So anyway, you can hear that it's totally raucous. I had to go ahead and edit it using remove silence. If you don't know what that is, click on a region, hit Control X, and you can automatically edit or crop or cut. Really, really nice feature. But anyway, listen to this part with the edit. Check it out. All right, and so then now in the context of the song, sounds a lot cleaner. Check it out. Okay, and then I just took that, I replicated it, added another Marshall. I took out the low end of the higher guitar that you're about to hear, added another gate just to make sure it wasn't noisy, but then I added another reverb so that it had different characteristics. One of the things that I always suggest if you want to improve your mixes, especially if you want to do it quickly, my friends, is to change the characteristic of the other source sound. So if you got another guitar that's playing the same part, make sure it sounds particularly different. It doesn't have to be a complete contrast, but definitely a little bit different. And now here, check this out. Yeah, so I didn't even play that in, right? I just copied it over, transposed it by 5 semitones, and yeah, it definitely worked on so many levels. I hope you enjoyed this installment. There's always so much more to talk about. You know, this is an ongoing conversation, but if you are curious and you want to learn more information and you want to know what all the hype is about, check me out, Eddie Gray Music on Instagram. Check us out at hfmusicacademy.com. And yeah, just wishing you guys the very best always. So I'm going to finish up again, just a little bit more reading here, and we will call it a day. So this next chapter is called Save Your Thefts for Later. Carry a notebook and a pen with you wherever you go. Get used to pulling it out and jotting down your thoughts and your observations. Copy your favorite passages out of books. Record overhead conversations. Doodle when you're on the phone. Go to whatever lengths necessary to make sure you always have paper on you. Artist David Hockney had all the inside pockets of his suit jackets tailored to fit a sketchbook. The musician Arthur Russell liked to wear shirts with 2 front pockets so he could fill them with scraps of score sheets. Keep a swipe file. What does that mean, right? It's just what it sounds like. A file to keep track of the stuff you've swiped from others. It can be digital or analog. It doesn't matter what form it takes as long as it works. You can keep a scrapbook and cut and paste things into it, or you can just take pictures of things with your camera phone. See something worth stealing, put it in the swipe file. Need a little inspiration? Open up the swipe file. Newspaper reporters call this a morgue file. I like that name even better. Your morgue file is where you keep the dead things that you'll later reanimate in your work. And here's a quote by the great Mark Twain. It is better to take what does not belong to you than to let it lie around neglected. Oh, that is so good. That is, one more time, guys. It is better to take what does not belong to you than to let it lie around neglected, from the great, great writer Mark Twain. All right, I'm going to get out of here. I got a session. Bless you guys. Stay up. Know that it's possible. If a guy like me who didn't come from music, I didn't have parents that were in music, I didn't have a genealogy with music, you can make it happen if it's inside of you, okay? It doesn't matter if you got to wake up early. It doesn't matter if you have to sleep late. Study, do what you have to do to get yourself to the next level. I don't know who I'm talking to right now, but I'm telling you right now that this is making a difference. Go look at my Instagram. If I showed you my email feeds, if I showed you all the texts I get from people all over the world telling me thank you so much for helping me, thank you for being there. And this is why I do it. I don't do it for the haters, I don't do it for the naysayers, and I certainly don't do it for any posers and liars that are in this industry. I do it for myself, because I love myself and I love my community and I love my people. So I need to get to work. I will see you next Monday and Wednesday at 5:30 Pacific Standard Central Time. Until then, keep your frequency high. We'll see you guys later. Cheers.